welcome back to our next sewing tutorial, and today it is a really cute one. We have the Small Size Tulia by Sarah Mariam. Now this pattern is great value. You get the small size and the big size in the one cost. But look at it, what a cute little backpack. I love it. I love it so much. Now you have these amazing 3D front pocket and side pockets here. You have adjustability in the strap, and there's feature strap cover. I'll try and show it. And then the middle, it opens up nice and wide. Inside is a slip pocket that you can divide off if you want to, but otherwise it's just big storage for a backpack. This is a bound finish bag. You can use a range of materials for this one. I've gone with a waterproof canvas, so nice and sturdy with some vinyl accents as well. Now, like all Sarah Mariam's patterns, it just fits beautifully. You're not having to try and stretch things, squeeze things in. It just goes together really nicely. If you're after a gorgeous little backpack pattern, especially this size, I can imagine it being amazing for kids, but I don't think I can part with this one. I like it too much. All right. So in the description, I shall link up the pattern. Go and grab it. It's available now. You're going to love this one. You really will. So grab your copy of the pattern. Let's get our fabrics cut and sorted, and then let's get sewing. Welcome to today's tutorial, and today we are doing the small version of the Tulia by Sarah Mariam. Now this is a classic backpack with heaps of storage, lots of wonderful pockets around the outside, and just one of those bags that you can have fun carrying. So like I said, this is the small version. I'm hoping to come back with a tutorial for the big one as well. Now, material wise for this one, my main print is this waterproof canvas from Sophisticated. It's a polyester base, hard wearing, it feels nice and soft as well. My lining, I've gone for a vibrant view in a plum colour just to complement those purple tones, and just for a couple little pieces I have this synthetic leather. It's in a full grain finish, so it's nice and soft, but it's got a bit of texture to it. Okay, that's our material, so get everything cut, and then let's move on to our stabilizer and hardware. All right, now that we've talked materials, let's move on to stabilizer and hardware. Now I'm using a mix of stabilizers. I've still got to cut them, but I'm using some heavy padded foam for the back, just so it's nice against the back. And for the rest, just some light padded foam. This is squishy, but it's very lightweight. Now both of those are from Sophisticated. In terms of hardware, it doesn't need much. We have our bias tape, we have our webbing. I'm using a 25mm webbing for this version. We need zipper tape, 5 zip pulls, and also some side release buckles. So you can get these from a real vast majority of places that sell bag making hardware will stock these. Otherwise Amazon, eBay is a good place as well. So I do like the plastic ones. I find the metal ones do make a metallic noise. So the plastic ones are good. I'm just going black for those. So I got 2 25mm ones. Obviously if you're using 1.5 inch webbing, you're going to need those wider ones. So we have discussed materials. We have discussed hardware and stabilizers. So I think it's time that we get sewing. First up, we're going to start off with our front and side pockets. All right, first up is our front and side pockets. So you're going to need pieces G, E, and your gusset pieces for the zippers. So just check the pattern pieces, but just quickly so you know, there's pieces E, G, I, J, K, and L. You also need some bias tape. Now for bias tape, I'm just using bits of the fabric, so the same lining fabric that I've cut up. I do like the vibrant view because it's still thin enough to be used as bias tape as well. So you're going to need bias tape, you're going to need your zippers. Make sure your zipper pulls are already on. Don't forget those. Now the idea of our side pockets is that we want both sides closing to the front. So when we get there, we're going to make sure that the zippers are facing different ways. So just check back for that one. All right, so first up though, we're going to start off with our side pockets. So pieces G, we are going to pop these wrong sides together. Get your stabilizer though in the meantime. Just make sure that especially if you're using something like the sew-in, maybe just a bit of double-sided tape just to hold it center, sandwich it in between, pop your lining on and clip around. So just a big basting stitch around the outside edge of that, and then just mark your centers. I'd say mark the quarter points just so you have a reference of where things lie with this one. So go ahead and do that. So sandwich a stabilizer and baste those pieces together, ready to go. There's my side pockets. I've basted them together and sandwiched that stabilizer in between. Now we need to get our gussets ready. So we have our piece K. This is our side pocket gusset. We need to fold the edges into the center. I've just drawn a line there to illustrate this. Fold them into the center, very much like when you're making a strap. You fold it into the center, and if you can, press. So both long edges go into the center and press. We are going to actually insert the zipper in between these folds. So over to your iron, if you can press it, both long edges to the center and hold them there. I'm going to actually use some hemming tape just to make sure that they stay put and to make my life a little bit easier. So go prepare your two pieces K and then come back and we'll talk about putting our zippers in. There's my piece case. I've folded those long edges in. Now we need to insert our zippers into here, but we need to make sure that the zipper pulls are closing in different directions. So make sure one's closing to the left, one's closing to the right. I might just pop a little bit of double-sided tape in there just to hold it in place and again make life a little bit easier. Peel off the backing, insert the zipper, whoops, in the middle there. I have cut the zippers just a tad bit bigger than they need to. I'd probably recommend that. You don't want to be worrying about the zipper just being that little bit too short and ruining everything. I'd rather lose an extra centimetre of zipper tape. But no, I don't have to recut the whole thing. So put that in. Good, good, good. Okay, then what we're going to do is fold the top edge down so we're completely hiding that raw edge of our zipper. Now the next process will remain the same for both of our zippers. After you've clipped it or secured it with double-sided tape, take it back to the machine and we're going to sew along this closest edge to the zipper with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. That's going to hold that fabric together. Repeat the process for both of your zippers. Then, once you've done that, our next step will be our larger zipper and our piece L. So grab those on your way back. Alright, there are my zippers done, and I did just trim the excess zipper on the sides. Now we need our piece L, which is the bottom of the zipper gusset, I guess. I'm sure it's named on there. Piece L, two of those. We are going to get our zipper. Now obviously our zipper is shorter than our piece L. Lining up the bottom of our zipper along the edge there. I just like to put a clip there because my hands don't work sometimes. Then we're going to fold piece L over the top of our zipper. So it's sandwiched in between. Now you can choose to do that at once, so you can just go to your machine and sew that end, or you can do both at the same time. Like I said, obviously the zipper is shorter than our piece L, so it's going to need to be sort of bunched up a little bit. That's where using clips will help you too. So also make sure, please, make sure that your zipper pull is attached now, because otherwise unpicking will have to occur. Now we're going to repeat the process for both piece L's and zippers. Take it back to your machine and sew across the short edge with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. I've sewn down each short side with that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Now we're going to turn these so they're all right sides out. So just pull on them, make sure that your seam comes out to its full extent. Then just clip those raw long edges of that bottom gusset together. So once you do this process once, you realise it is very easy. I know it can be quite confusing initially, but it will always work. And Sarah Mariam, her cut and pieces fit. They just fit. There's no worrying about, oh, do I need to pre-check it? I just know with her stuff that it works. Okay, so clip together those long raw edges and then back to the machine, and we're just going to baste those long raw edges together. Nice long stitch length. Next though, I'm going to be attaching my bias tape. So if you want to do that, grab it and come back for the next step. Otherwise, the bias tape can also be added later. There's my zipper gussets all connected and basted, and also bias tape. I just measured it out, so I just got one end of my tape, clipped it, wrapped it around and figured out how long it needed to be. Now I love doing my binding like this. I just find it a lot easier. So I've just made a loop the same circumference as my zipper gussets, and all I'm going to do is just pop it on along the raw edge on the inside. That could have been bad, couldn't it? Along the inside raw edge. So on the lining side of your gusset, I just clip it on, open up the seam allowance, go around, sort of fit it on, make sure it's fitting nicely, clip around, and then once I've done that, I'll take it back to my sewing machine and just really quickly baste it on. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular, just a longer stitch length I've got, and I just want to make sure that it's all aligned nicely with that edge. I don't really want it peeking up and over anywhere, because otherwise I'll end up with uneven binding. So I'm going to repeat the process for both of those. Once you've done that, if you choose to do it that way, when we get back, we'll look at clipping our zipper gussets to our side pockets. Okay, we're getting to the exciting bit. Now I've found the quarter points of my zip gusset. To do this, I just matched up those side edges, added a pin, top and bottom, and then match those pins to find the quarter points. So pretty easy. Now we are going to attach it to our main pocket. So what we need to do is find the top edge and align it with the quarter point or top point of our pocket. Then do the same with the bottom. So sometimes it can seem a bit laborious doing the quarter points, but it really, really does help with the disbursement of our gusset. We want to make sure it's nice and even. We don't want being a little bit bunchy here, but slack over there. We want those really nice results. It's worth taking that extra minute or so. And besides, we all know that handmade is not quick. No one ever said handmade was quick. Okay. So just clip around. Now when you get to these corners, you might find that they're a bit tight, especially dependent on the type of fabric you're using. I'm using a waterproof canvas which has zero stretch. So all I'm going to do is just get onto my gusset and just the tiniest little snips. Barely 1/8 of an inch. Just enough so I can open out that gusset ever so slightly to get it around the corners. And look, see, that was more than enough. That will fit beautifully without any pleating or folding. There we go. And then we'll do the same with the others. So once you've done that, you're going to repeat the process with all of them. Just be wary when you're cutting through your zipper that you're only taking the tiniest little slit there. Don't be doing too big a cut. And if you find that your zipper is one that would fray a lot, maybe some fray check, or just avoid cutting it at all, really. Alright, so clip in place. Once you've clipped all the way around on both of your zipper gussets, take it back to the machine, baste it first. I think basting is a great idea, and then sew it at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I'll come back and we'll talk about bias tape and how I finish off this style. I've now sewn my zipper gussets on with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and because my bias tape is already attached, all I need to do is pull it up You'll see why in a second why I love doing this method. It's just a lot easier. So once we pull it up, just make sure it's really sitting right on the seam. Then we fold it over once, so it's almost in line with the edge there, and then twice, and there we go. It's covered our stitch line. That's how easy it is. So especially when you're going around these tighter corners, sometimes when you're doing binding afterwards, it can be very tricky. And I honestly do not do it well if I need to attach bias binding afterwards. I am bad at it. I've never improved on it, whereas using this method, it's as good as I can get it really. It's nice and neat, it's even. You're not worrying about, if you join it in a loop, you're not worrying about edges being exposed, the short edges being exposed. So it's really, really easy, neat way of doing it. All right, so all I'm going to do is go around, fold it, enclose it, and then back to the machine, and I'm just going to stitch along the edge with about an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just so I catch both sides of that binding. So go ahead and repeat the process for both of those. There's my completed side pockets. So my bias tape is now sewn, looking really neat. And then we just fold them out. So we will tackle attaching these a little bit later, because first we want to go ahead and get our front pockets sorted. So just pop them aside. You can have a look, you can admire them for now, but then pop them aside. We need to do our front pocket pretty much in the same method that we just did that one. So first up, we're going to get our stabilizer, if it's not already attached, sandwich it in between the main and lining piece of our front pocket, go ahead and baste around, and then make sure that you have your larger zipper, the 30 centimeter zipper, and your 2 gusset pieces. There's my front pocket all basted. Now onto our zipper. So same thing, I folded my piece in half and then half again, and I've just used hemming tape to hold it there. Now I'll just get some double-sided tape. So it's the same process for this one as it was the side pockets, just different shapes and different sizes. Now with our zipper, have it closing to the right. So it's going to be closing to the right. Okay. And then pop it in the center, stick it down. That's why we use double-sided tape. It does make it a bit easier. I'm going to grab my clips, fold it over, and just clip it down. So, like I said, same as those side pockets we just did. Once you have clipped it all the way down, we are going to head back to our sewing machine, and we'll top stitch on this edge, this folded edge closest to the zipper, with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And on your way back, find your piece J, which is the bottom gusset to this one. There we go. I've top stitched along there. Now we get our piece J, pop it down the bottom. I'm just going to clip it, fold piece J over and meet those long edges. Clip it again. And then same thing, so your zipper again is shorter than that bottom gusset piece. It is intentional. And also make sure your zipper pull is on. I know I'm repeating myself, I'm probably nagging you, but I'm going to save you some unpicking otherwise. 1 centimeter seam allowance for both of those, and then turn it out and baste those long raw edges. Now same deal as your side pockets. If you want to pre-attach that bias tape, go for it. I would recommend it. Otherwise, skip that bit. So turn out and baste, and then come back here. Okay, my zipper gusset is done for my front pocket, and now we're going to attach it. So I've already attached my bias tape and marked my quarter points on both pieces. So just making sure our zipper is in fact up the top. Would be a bit awkward if we had to open it from the bottom, wouldn't it? We're just going to clip around. Again, next quarter point, match up that edge and clip. try and separate my clips. Okay, so you get the idea. It is the exact same process as the last one. So we match up those quarter points, clip around. If you need to just cut little clips into those corners of the gusset, then please do so. Once you've done that, go ahead and baste it, sew it with our 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're ready to move on to the next one. Okay, now that our pockets are formed up, it's time to attach them to our main pattern pieces. So we're going to start off with the side pockets. We have our side exteriors, and I've used a paper template to trace around on this piece of fabric. It's 1.5 inches up from the bottom, then I've drawn a center line and matched it up and used the almost quarter markings as per the pattern piece. These side markings are for where our zipper gusset ends. Alright, so let's just go with one. I've done pins at my quarter points here, as close to accurate as I can get it. It can be a bit fiddly, but we'll get there. So use whatever method you want to. I like to pin, and I like to use a lot of pins. So I just start off by pinning these quarter points. That is the main section that I want to do. Alright, you'll hear my dogs playing in the background. It's not a monster, it's just 2 Jack Russells that want to play very loudly while I'm trying to do stuff, of course. Alright, I'm sorry if I'm going out of screen. It is kind of fiddly, but you kind of got to do what you got to do with this one. So just manipulate it as you need. I'm just being wary not to rub off the chalk mark. There it is, I could not see that for looking then. So yes, just pin around. Pop in as many pins or clips or tape as you need to. Just remember though that we are going to be sewing it, so we don't want to gum up the needle too much or have things in the way. I'll pin it back as far as I can, but you also want to have some accuracy with it. So what you're going to need to do is pin it around, manipulate the corners so they lay as flat as possible, but you will sort of get a little lip on it, which is fine. That's what we want to do. Once you have pinned everything around flat, take it back to your machine. Now I find a zipper foot works best for this one because you want to get maybe 1/8 of an inch in from this folded edge here. I also like to use a double stitch feature on my machine. Not sure if some of the older vintage machines probably don't have that, but I just find it a bit more secure because one line of stitching might not be enough to hold on the pocket long term. So you're going to go ahead and do the same process for both of your side pockets and side panels. So pin, if you want to base, go for it, and then stitch around with that nice small seam allowance. There are my side pockets sewn on, and I'm loving how they look. Really neat, really cool. All right, let's put together the base of our gusset. Now with my base piece, I have sewn a rectangle just to secure my stabilizer. So you don't have to do that if you're using a stick-on stabilizer or something, or a Deckerville, you probably won't need to do that step. Now I'm just going to lay out my base piece with my side pockets how I want it to finish up. So we have the bottom non-zippered end facing in. Now it can be a little bit tricky with this because obviously your side pocket is going to get in the way a little bit, but just do your best. Don't be worried if you need to sort of make it fit, just push, pull, it'll stick out a little bit as you do it. All right, we are going to now sew this edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you've done that, repeat with the other side, and then come back here and I'll tell you about the top stitching. There's both my sides attached to the base now. All I'm going to do before I top stitch is just cut those corners back to reduce that bulk. Same with that one there. And then we're going to push the seam allowance towards the base. So fold it down. And then once you've done that, just top stitch through with a 1/8 inch seam allowance through the base. Then once you've done that, we're going to get our lining panels, and we're going to repeat the same process with the base and the side lining panels. Obviously, you don't have to worry about the pockets on the lining panels. Just repeat that process first. And then we're going to move on to our main zipper gusset. There are my two completed gussets, looking really, really good. So we're going to pop these aside now while we work on the top part of our gusset. So we're going to need our two piece H exteriors and linings. Now, how should I do this? What I'm thinking, what I'd normally do is have them facing inwards. And so we need our exterior, our zipper, and our linings. So I'm going to get some double-sided tape and just put a line along the edge that I want the zipper on. So nothing unexpected in this step. We're just doing a basic zipper gusset. And I will say this pattern is already coming together quicker than I assumed it would. I'm not sure why I thought it might take a bit longer, but it's coming along really well. So I'm going to peel off the backing to that one. Get rid of all the weird little bits of double-sided tape that just want to hang around there. And then get my zipper. I haven't attached the zipper pulls yet. I'll do that soon. So coil side down, right sides together with our exterior. My puppy is going nuts in the background. Please ignore him. Okay, there we go. And then a lining piece. We're going to pop that right sides together. I'm just going to grab my clips. You can use double-sided tape again if you want to, up to you. So just clip it across, lining up those straight edges. Okay, once you have clipped it and it's all looking satisfactory, back to the machine and sew across the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've sewn across there with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we are going to get our fabric, open it out. If you can press it, awesome. You can do so, otherwise just use your hands to press it. And then get the fabric wrong sides together. Now, if you haven't stabilized your fabric, I haven't, because I'm using a sew-in foam, I'm going to just clip the ends just to hold it in place for the moment. And then, as long as I cut it well, that's going to go in there. And it'll fit like a glove, hopefully. Yep, perfect. Okay, I'll clip it along. So making sure that the stabilizer or foam is tucked right in. Right, imagine I've just done that seamlessly. So stabilizer's in place. Then next, we're going to go back to our machine and sew across this edge closest to the zipper with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And then just baste the remaining 3 sides. Once you've done that, repeat the process with your other exterior, lining and stabilizer. Now that the top of our zipper gusset is done, we need to attach it to the bottom part of our gusset. So similar to what we did before, we need to now attach this raw side. Now it is going to be very tight because we need to attach this top bit where the zipper is attached, and obviously there isn't a whole lot of fabric there, so you're just going to need to be very, very patient as you go and make sure that you are pinning or clipping it very thoroughly. So I'm just going to do one side at a time. We're going to get these right sides together. Now I would highly recommend, if you've got a zipper foot, to use it for this step, because you're going to have to get nice and close in there. But that is the beauty of this pattern, where those side pockets are a real feature. So lots of clips, just sort of squish it down if you need to. I'm going to go and baste across, then I'll repeat with the other side as well, and I'll come back and talk about the lining section then. Okay, I have basted both sides, and now we're going to get the lining portion of our bottom gusset and pop that right sides together with our lining side. So we're going to end up with a very funny shaped tube soon, but you'll see why I advise to baste first, because there really isn't much space between the top of that 3D pocket and this gusset. So we just need to go slow and be very careful as we do it. You can also baste this lining first before you do your proper stay stitch, that's up to you. For that extra few seconds though, sometimes it is very much worth it. Okay, so clipping our lining across. When you get back to the machine, we're going to sew across each side with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. So go ahead and do that, take your time, be very careful with it too. I've sewn each side with that 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now I'm just going to, again, reduce the bulk on those corners. These are the sides that are going to be added to or attached to our main panels. So where we can reduce bulk, we want to. Then turn it all right side out. So now, all being well, we have one big loop of bag. Now, before we go much further, we are going to push that pocket down, and as close as you can, top stitch along this edge. So it will be tricky, but that's fine. We can do it. Same with that edge. Go ahead and do those sides, and then just baste down both long edges so you end up with a connected loop of fabric. So go ahead and do that. And then when we get back, we'll just have a quick brief discussion about binding. All right, there we go. So I've basted these sides shut. I top stitched just above those pockets there, and it's looking really good. Now, when it comes to binding, I'm going to do what I did before with my side pockets and already pre-attach my binding now. So that saves doing it later once we've made the main panel. So I've just got loops of my same lining material, and all I'm going to do is pop those right sides together with the edge of my lining on both sides and baste them. So your choice if you want to do it now or later. That's what I'm doing though. Next, we will start to work on our front panel. So you're going to need your front panel and that front pocket as well. So there is my completed gusset. I have basted on my bias tape, and I've also marked the top and bottom centers. That'll be ready for when we do the main panel soon. Okay, now, speaking of main panels, onto our front panel. I have made my markings, so I've popped the template on 1.5 centimeters up from the bottom there. We are now going to get our front pocket, and just like we did with our side pockets, we are going to pin it to our main panel. So matching up our top and bottom center points, and then also on your paper pattern piece, those side arrows are to distinguish where our gusset ends. So just like we did with our side pockets, pin it, take your time to pin it around, make sure you're happy with how it's sitting, then sew it on nicely. Make sure you take your time with that one. So go ahead and do that, and then I think when we get back, we'll look at attaching our front handle. There's my front pocket sewn on, and I'm actually really loving it. I'm glad I took the time just to make sure that it was all sitting nicely. So especially around the corners, you just want to double check that you've got that placement correct. Otherwise you will see it if there's a bit of discrepancy. Okay, time to move on with our handle. So a little bit of prep work. The top portion of our handle is rolled, so where we're grabbing it. So on our 42 centimeter pieces of webbing, we need to make a couple of marks. From each short end, mark 15 centimeters. This 15 centimeter portion will remain unsewn, whereas that middle 12 centimeter section, we're going to get those long edges together and just edge stitch along those edges between those two markings, just that 12 centimeter portion. That'll give us a small rolled edge portion for our handle. So go ahead and do that. And while wherever you're preparing that, we need to make a couple of marks on each piece. So on our front and on our back. Mark the center vertically. I'll show you on this one. 8.5 centimeter line down. And because I'm using 25mm webbing, these marks will be 8 centimeters apart. This will be the placement for the ends of our webbing handles. So follow the paper pattern piece, those markings are illustrated on there. So handles, markings, come back. All right, I have sewn my webbing. So we have that rolled portion looking really neat, and I've just popped one on this side just to show you the placement. On the reverse side, we have a 1.5 inch marking. Like I said, we're going to fold that raw edge of webbing up to meet that marking. So it's a 2 centimeter fold over. Then we have our markings for positioning. Just pop it. So for 25mm, you've got 8 centimeter gap in between. Then I like to put a pin through it, especially if I'm using webbing. There we go. So both are in the correct position. Just make sure they're nice and straight. Now, once you've done that, go ahead and sew an X box. Now, an X box is a rectangle with an X through the middle. I'll probably do mine about 1 inch high, just so I know that it's gone over that raw end of the webbing and secured it there. So do that. We'll leave the back one for now because the back one is slightly different. So just do the front one for now, and then we'll attach the lining panel in a second. There are my handles, looking good, all sewn on with an X box. And now we're going to get our lining fabric and we're going to pop it wrong sides together with our exterior. Now, if you haven't attached your stabilizer, now is a very good time because soon enough you won't be able to. So go ahead and attach your stabilizer if you didn't do it earlier. Because I'm using a sew-in foam, I didn't want to have it in the seam allowances. I didn't want to increase the bulk where I didn't have to, so I am attaching it now. So we're just going to clip around, matching up all those edges. Just take your time with it. Clip, clip, clip. Once you've clipped it all the way around, baste around the exterior of that one. Okay, then once we've done that, we're going to retrieve our back panel and the handle and start on that one. So you're going to need your back panel, your handle, your strap, the strap cover, and a few other pieces. Okay, there's our completed front panel, so we can pop that aside for now because my lining's all basted and that one's ready to go. Now we move on to our back. So I've pinned my webbing portions exactly like I did for the front, but all we're going to do now is just unfold them. So you can take the tape off if you want, otherwise I'm just going to stick it there. That looks good. Why? Because our strap cover will be covering the bottom of those. So go ahead and just baste those in place. Doesn't have to be anything fantastic. Just make sure you stay basted within maybe, I don't know, 1 inch of that line. And then once you're on your way back, go ahead and grab your long 70 centimeter pieces of webbing. There's my handle basted on, and next we have our 70 centimeter pieces of webbing, and we are just going to attach them on an angle. So angling outwards, I'm going to probably put it in line with the bottom of my webbing, and just so that inside corner matches up there. That sounds about right, doesn't it? It doesn't, there's no strict rule as to the degree of the angle that you're going to do it, but I think my best advice to give you would be that you just make sure that they're even. So make sure they're going on the same angle. Otherwise it can look a bit odd. Now what have I done with my pin? There it is. Okay. So pin those in place or double-sided tape those. Make sure they're sitting at the right angle. If you need to adjust it, do so. Once you're happy with it, back to the machine and just baste those in place again. If you want, maybe clip together the ends of the webbing for now, otherwise they're going to be floating in your way. So go ahead, baste across a few times for that one. Alright, there's my straps and my handles basted now. Now it's time to pop on our strap cover. Now there's plenty of options for this one. I'm using vinyl. I just interfaced the back of it and I've just done some really pretty rough edge coating along the side. I just wanted to keep it basic with this one. I've drawn a line about 1/4 inch below the ends of my webbing here. Again, no set mark, just make sure that it's covering it. And I just pop some double-sided tape on. So all I'm going to do is peel that one off. I've marked center line just to match it up and stick it on. As easy as that. Just make sure that it's all positioned nicely, and then once you've done that, back to the machine and just top stitch around there. I think I might do one at 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then I'll do another at 1/4 inch just to really make sure that it's secure. Alright, so once you've done that, probably the last step for our back panel at the moment will be our bottom strap connectors. So we're going to need our 2 short lengths of webbing and our triangular bits. There we go, there's my back support all sewn on. So I really like that, nice and neat. Now we're going to get onto the bottom strap connectors. So we have our 2 triangles. I like to fold it so the long edges or the longer side of our triangle matches up, and I just clip it in place. This vinyl is slippery. Then I get some webbing that I have sealed the edges of, insert it into the fold, so tuck it right into that fold and have it so it's sitting about 1 centimeter above. And again, I'll show you on this one. So fold so the long edges meet. I like to clip. Insert the webbing so it's about 1 centimeter above. Okay, back to the machine with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, sew across the top here to secure the webbing. I like to back stitch a few times back and forth. Repeat the process for both. Now there's both of those sewn. I'm just going to ever so slightly and carefully just cut away a little bit of the corner, but being careful not to cut through my webbing at all. And as you saw in the video, I did just go back and forth a few times. Now we're going to turn them right side out. Just pull on the webbing a little bit and you should find that it should come out. Otherwise, just grab something pointy but blunt to push out that corner. Perfect. Okay. Back to the machine again. Let's top stitch around those sides. And then when we get back, we'll look at attaching them to our back panel. Now on the paper pattern piece, there is indication for placement of those. So just copy across those markings and then we shall attach them. Alright, we have top stitched those. Now if you couldn't find your bit of paper to show you where it is, you want to make markings at least 4 centimeters up. I'm just going to trim this excess portion here. There we go. Now we want to place these so that our webbing is angled up. So where's my marking? There it is. So just popping it along there and clip in place. There we go. Same with that one. Alright, once you've done that, we're going to take it back to our machine and we're going to baste those in place. Okay, there's our exterior back panel done. We're going to pop that aside for the moment and we're just going to quickly work on our lining. Now, this lining is kind of a blank canvas. You could add as many pockets as you want to it. In the pattern, it just has a slip pocket, but feel free to add zip pocket, 2 slip pockets, whatever you really want to do. We're going to get our slip pocket pieces. We're going to pop them right sides together. Just figuring out which one the right side is. Clip along that top straight edge there. And once you've done that, we're going to sew across the top with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. After you've done that, turn it wrong sides together and just top stitch across the top edge. I've top stitched along my slip pocket. Now we're just going to line it up along our other lining panel. Now if you wanted to base the bottom of that slip pocket, you could, if that's what makes you feel a bit more confident with matching it up. Realistically, the curve should be the same, but if it's slightly off, don't worry. There is worse things that can happen, really. You'll find that the seam allowance is very forgiving and it takes up a fair few discrepancies like that. Alright, once you've done that, baste around those sides. And then when we come back, we'll talk about how we're going to start to put this last panel together. There is my slip pocket basted and secured to my lining panel. And now we just need to baste our main and lining together. So again, nothing unexpected here. We're just going to match up the edges, mark the centers if you want to. I've got the centers marked on my exterior. Go around, match up the edges, make sure your stabilizer is in. And then once you've done that, baste around the perimeter. Afterwards, we are going to start to actually do our final assembly. So you're going to need your main panels and your exterior gusset, well, your gusset because it's all made up, and then we can put it together. Alright, now that all our main panels have been put together, it is time to get our bags sorted. So we need to find our center points. So I've used pins to do that. Now remember, with the direction of our pockets, we want our pockets closing to the front. So I'm going to make sure I start with my front panel and my gusset pockets will be closing to the front. Just take your time to do that. We're going to pop these right sides together, matching up the center markings first. So nothing unexpected here, just a basic putting the gusset and main panels together. I've already pre-attached my binding just to make things easier, but I would advise more pins than not enough. It can get a little bit tricky around the pockets just because there isn't a whole heap of room there. So probably nice strong clips and plenty of them. If you find as well that you're having a hard time getting the gusset around those bottom corners, feel free to just put tiny little snips into the gusset, but because we only have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, make sure they're not too big. So we're going to clip all the way around. Take your time with this one. Put little clips in where you need to. One day I will take off these hooks to these clips because they annoy me every time, but today's not that day. And honestly, tomorrow won't be that day either, so maybe if I complain to my husband enough, he'll just do it for me. Alright, so clipping all the way around. But like I said, when you get to these side pockets, just be careful. Can get a little bit squishy, but we'll be okay. Just manipulate it as you need to. Doesn't matter if those pockets get squished up because we will shape our bag after we're done with this. Alright, keep going with the clipping all the way around. It should fit nicely looking at that. Perfect. Clip all the way around, take it back to your machine, baste it first, and then do your proper stay stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, I've sewn my gusset on, and apart from some messy loose threads, but that's okay, my bobbin thread decided to run out halfway through and it didn't really tell me. Now because I have pre-attached my binding, all I need to do is pull it up, and just like we did with the front and side pockets, I just fold it over. So I fold it over once to meet the edge, fold it over again to enclose the seam, and then I just do that all the way around. So I'm going to sew that on. That'll secure my bias tape in place, and it also gives a good reinforcing stitch. Then, once we've done that, flip it on over, make sure your zipper is at least partially open, and we're going to attach our back panel in the same manner. So clip it, baste it, stay stitch, and bind. Again, be wary of those side pockets. It probably won't be as bad because we don't have that front pocket to contend with. So go ahead and do that. Last step, and then we'll look at popping on our side release buckles. Okay, both of our sides are now sewn on, and it's time to turn our bag out, but we are not going to get too excited, okay? Because we still need to finish our buckles. So to save the headache, go ahead and turn your bag right side out through the main opening. Open your zippers all the way up, and on your way back, grab your side release buckles, and we'll talk about how we're going to attach those. Okay, now that our bag is turned out, it's time to attach our side release buckles. We're not going to get too excited just yet. So we're going to come up. I like to keep my side release buckles attached just for the moment. That way I know I'm working the right way. It's just a little thing of mine. All right, so I've got I'm going to say the top hole, bottom hole. I'm going to come from the back, up through the top hole, pull, over, and insert through that bottom hole. The idea being when the person's wearing it, it's going to be really hard when you put pressure on it for that to slip up. Again with this one, up through the bottom. And now I'm going to take it over to my machine, and I'm going to 1, 2, and I'm actually going to triple fold it. Sometimes I notice that the holes in the side release buckles can be a bit bigger than others. So I'd rather just have the assurity that it's not going to slide out and go a bit wrong. So, all right, first step, before we attach the top, fold it back to the machine and just stitch across there. Make sure you back stitch a bit as well. Go ahead and do that, and then we come back, we'll finish it off with the top. Okay, time to attach our top straps now. I've just quickly done it. If you're making this for a child, you might want to reduce the length of these straps. So this is cut at the 70 centimeters. You might want to reduce it down by 10 centimeters, even 20 centimeters, dependent on the age of the child that you're sewing it for. Now we're just going to get our top strap, insert it through that spare end, fold it up, fold it over like that, and just line it up with the back. That way it's hidden, and we'll just clip it. And I'll do the same again for that side. Just unroll it, make sure that bottom isn't twisted, through the back. So from front to back this time. Fold it over and connect it. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sew a rectangle just to secure that webbing in place. And when we're returning, that's it. We'll talk about our finished bag. I have secured the straps with a rectangle, and here we go. There is our completed Small Tulia bag. Isn't it cute? It is so cute. I love it. It is such a gorgeous little mini backpack. Now, I make a lot of backpacks, I know, and I make a lot of big backpacks, but sometimes it is nice just to have a little small backpack to grab and go what you want. And I mean, this would be perfect for a small child. It really would. It would be a great kinder backpack. It would hold everything that you need. And it's just fantastic. I love it. I love the pockets. Nice big center compartment. I love a bound finish as well. It does make life a bit easier when you do like binding bags. And those pockets are great just for extra storage. It is fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now don't forget, the Tulia also comes in a big size as well, which is included in the same pattern cost. So you can make both, you can make one, up to you. But it is such a cute little finished bag. I love it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. That's been a lot of fun. A few different techniques today, but all of them enjoyable. So if you like it, make sure you like and subscribe. I got a heap of tutorials that I want to do, and I'd love your support. So gather your materials, grab your pattern. I'll pop the link in the description. Enjoy sewing this one. It is super fun. Until next time, happy sewing and enjoy.